All right, I am going to paint this young lady who, I got the reference from Unsplash. I just decided that might be the best way to go. I felt like there's pretty good lighting on her. Looks like one light source, which is what I'm always looking for. And I've created my drawing a little bit darker than I normally would, just so you can see it. But normally I don't go that dark. So what I want to do here is just see where I'm at with values. And I messed up again. Okay. And so I'm creating puddles of approximately 10% value. I'm going to use my typical sort of a triad, my Quin Coral, Quin Gold, and Peacock Blue. Often, I'll switch out and maybe use Hooker's Green instead of Peacock Blue, or I might even just use magenta or something like that if I'm being more cautious with like a young child. Sometimes it can be pretty tricky if you get the blue in the wrong place on their face. That is pretty light. I'm always a bit timid about the blue because of what I just said, but I'm going to go ahead and add a little more color to that. Let's see how that works. Still needs more. I want the three colors to have approximately the same value, so I'm squinting, and I think that will work. Okay, before I start, I'm going to put a couple dots of masking fluid, so hold on one second. So I should have done this earlier. I like how so she's got some highlights coming through her lashes. So, this is super tiny. I've got a dot of masking fluid on it. I think I'm just going to get a little bit of sparkle in here. Not as much as is shown on the paper, but I don't want to lose some of that. So I'm going to get some of that between her lashes just for a little safety net for myself. Just the edge of that. The problem is once I get masking fluid out, which I really don't like to use, it's easy to get carried away. So, which maybe that's why I don't like to use it, because I know how I am. But I wanted to just get a little bit of the sparkles in her eye, and it looks like maybe this. I could scrape them out or lift them out later, but sometimes it's just nice to get a cup. There's such tiny, tiny splotches. Okay, that's all we will do there. I'm going to do one more thing. Since she's wearing a sweater, I'm going to just take a couple of this little, I'm just barely getting anything on here. And just to get some of these little tufts on the edge of the sweater, that I don't want to necessarily lose. I'm not drawing the whole thing. I am just touching the edge in a couple places. Okay. They're such tiny dots. It'll be fine. I can go ahead and start. I'm going to, I think I'm going to just come in on the light side with the warm. Do I have blue on my brush still? I think I'll start with the warm and pull that in. And then I'm just basically going to alternate those three colors and to create kind of a base for my flesh tone. I'm going to make sure that your paint is stirred up really well so that it doesn't leave little speckles of paint here and there, which happens. And I'm going to dip right into the coral and even into I think I'm ready for the blue. I will rinse for the blue, but I want to make sure I get most of the water out so I don't dilute it. And I want to come across her eyes and maybe come down a ways down there. Then I'm going to go back into the coral and back into the warm yellow. And here I'm going to go ahead and be careful at the edge of that sweater. Okay, I'm getting quite a bit of droplets here, and what happens is it'll gray down my color, so I don't really want that. I'm going to stick with the coral and go right into this. Yeah, I'll get these little edges. I'll go right over her hand. And then I'm going to go into the warm, get the top of her fingers. This is still slightly damp, so it may just bleed in. That's okay. I'm not worried about her hair because it will be darker. I go back into that blue. And maybe a little more warm. It's just a base color. Okay. And let's go ahead and get into this side. Let's start with the, you know what? I'm going to start with blue. Because why not? Okay. Then we'll go into the warm. And then we'll go into the coral. So you'll see the colors separate and you'll see what they do when they mingle. But it is a very light value. I like to start with the features. So I'm going to take a little bit of Quinburnt Orange. And now I'm going to use much thicker paint. So I'm just taking my damp brush and rubbing it across my dry paints. Okay, so I'm taking this this little mixture here, and I'm just going to start to define. This is all dark. I'm just going to fill it in. I think it's probably like all flesh in there, so I'll keep it warm and I can adjust colors later. But I'm just going to take this little Kolinsky damp and just pull this out. Get a little color on it. This might work better for a thin line. Okay. I'm going to drop in a little bit of Scarlet Lake. And I'm just going to tickle the edge to soften it out. Her nostrils, I'm going to add just a little bit of ultramarine blue to this mixture just to darken it a bit. Now it's brown. Okay, so let's go into the Scarlet Lake. Pull that in. I don't want it to be brown. I want it to be a cool red. That'll work. And I'm really not seeing her nostril, so I guess I want it dark. But it's really just going to be a suggestion of where her nostrils are. What I don't want is black. I took a little bit of watery Scarlet Lake to pull that down and maybe, yeah, soften it out. Let's take Purely Maroon, a dark, 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 with a little bit of indigo and a lot more Purely Maroon. I want a warm dark. I don't want it to be black. I don't want it to be blue. So this is a very dark, dark, because even as dark as I'm going to go now, and it looks black. It's not black. I don't want black, so don't make black. But I know. So let's take some Scarlet Lake with a little bit of Quin Rose, and I will pull that out and let it come out into her lip. And then I'll just soften it out. And for her top lip, it's going to go right across. So my little dots of masking fluid are doing their job. Okay, well, I just wanted to get some started there. This is pretty dark. I'm going to use some orange to connect that mouth. Let's take some peacock, maybe a dash of orange, and I want to get the tops. Oh, that's not good. More peacock. I just want to get these darker areas. I'm kind of looking at the posterized version just to get the darkest darks up here. I'm not being very successful. Ugh, not at all. Quin Coral. Moving on. Quin Coral and some orange. Let's do that. Yeah. Okay, let's get a little bit in here. Let's pull it right down into here. Do not like what's going on here, but and here I just want to soften this down. I'm determined. Okay, gotta get that somewhat right before I move on. Okay, there we go. So right there I was just using Quin Coral and orange, just some brilliant orange, and just starting to establish these shapes that show you what our hands are doing. This one's not as dark. I might just stick with orange on this one. Pull some of that red in here. And just soften things out. Just getting things started. Let's take a little bit of that blue and little finger creases down here, or rather dark, maybe even in here. So I mixed up some black in advance. I have a big container of it, but a bigger container. But so I took my phthalo blue with, it's looking like it turned red on me. This is phthalo blue. I'm just gonna add that to a little of this. Anyway, it's phthalo blue. Oh, there we go. Just had to mix it. Make sure you stir things that sit. So, okay, good. This is what I want to use for her eyelashes, but I'm going to start out on the safer side, so I'm using this watery version. I'm just going to set that here. Okay. And again, I've got my little chisel. I'm hoping not to go too heavy. Get a little bit of that water off, and then I'm going to curve this. Try to curve that brush a bit so I can get these little lines, little eyelashes, and make them uneven. Go right across. I just love how you can see the sparkle through. Then I'm going to be braver and go into the thicker version and just touch a little bit, a couple spots. I think I'm going to go ahead and get her pupil in there. Where I think it is. It's hard to tell in this photo. So we'll do that. I'm taking this little tiny brush again, and I'm just going to tickle some things, maybe even soften or pull out. Okay. These are a lot lighter. Soften those out. Connect this and that. Pull some out with water. Leave some holes. Okay, well that's a good enough start for that. Let's darken that pupil. Okay. I don't remember what that was. I'm going to look that up. Let's mix up some Mission Red Brown. No. Let's use indigo. We'll just use indigo. I just want to show you how I mean, sometimes I'll mix it up and actually put brown on there, but I also like to do color. So sometimes I'll just start with the blue like I'm going to do now. I'll come back to her brown eyes, but let's just get some color back here. So I want to establish some of these darks, and it does not matter what color they are. Just want to get some down. And I may soften it or pull it out here and there. So it's not too perfect. I'm just starting to establish a little bit of this dark. I'm going to put a little bit of this on her eye, just a little bit. Okay, back to those darks. This is, I don't know, 20-30%, maybe 40% at the most peacock or indigo. And then I'm adding water to it, which will even thin it out more. But I just like to just let the hair do cool things by itself. Let's take a little bit here. And then damp brush, just tickling the edges, connecting. And I'll put this right into the hair. It looks funny blue, but we'll fix it later. Okay, I'm also going to use this indigo for this. This is a pretty dark, tiny edge, so just do that. Where else can I use indigo? Maybe the inside of her sweater where the shadow is pretty dark, even though it's a light colored sweater. I haven't decided what color it will be. It looks white in the photo. Okay, so far so good. Let's get a little bit darks down here. It really comes all the way down back and sort of blends in with her, I don't know what's hair and what's hand. It may be her hair going over her hand, maybe the shadow on the hand, I don't know. But I just want to pull that down. Okay, and then how about on this side? Looking for edges, I'm looking for strong value changes that I can start putting to work here. So I think that is enough of that. I'm just going to take pure burnt orange. See how it works with that indigo. I can just go right over the whole eye, including the pupil. And remember, I have those little dots I'm masking, so those whites are being saved as well. Since I have it here, let's go ahead and get a little bit of color on this. It's not going to be the color of her hair, but we can get started. Okay, give it a little shot with my heat dryer. What I'd like to do is get in a few of the dark, well, let's see. I didn't do the eyelashes underneath her eyes. So I'm getting a little bit more of that black mixture that I had showed you before, the phthalo with the Purely Maroon. It's pretty watery. And I'm going to try to just use this brush to get some irregular, and I don't want them too long or too dark. So I'm just going to soften some. Actually, not too bad. Tiny, 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 tiny strokes. These are a little bit darker. I'm going to go ahead and make it more of a point. Okay. also take the back of my brush, or, oops, that had water on it. Anyway, that'll be enough for that. Let's put, since I've got it on my brush, get a few darker swipes here. Okay, I'm going to take some Quin Magenta, and I'm going to use this as a base for the flesh. It'll be the darkest shadow areas. If I can pull this off with the magenta, then I won't need to go into a blue. And I don't want it too dark, but it's a little darker than we started with on the flesh. So I'm going to start right over here. I'm going to go back into this where it was dark. Just start to pull it down. And I'm looking at the posterized version and sort of just getting this darkest dark area. And I'll take my clean brush and just soften some edges. And yes, it looks a bit purple, but we will take care of that on another layer. I want to get some of this in here. Or rather, it's in shadow. You can see how watery it is. You should be able to see that it's very wet. And I want to bring this all the way up to her nose and then let it connect, come down here and connect. Using a posterized version is a great way to learn to see the shapes on a face, because it does take a little practice. But once you get pretty good at it, you won't necessarily need to be printing those off anymore. I just find them helpful. Well, let's get just softening it. I think I'm going to leave that and not go all the way down. It shows one value on the posterized version, but on the, the color in the black and white, you can see that it's not a solid shape. So I want to get more form by following those. That's why I have so many references. So this is going to get softened up. Okay, it's also going to get softened in. And this is sort of solid, but I think I need to lift a little bit. It's not a super hard shadow. I'm liking it. I know it's purple, but I still like it. So go ahead and darken a little bit in here. Definitely in here. I'm not even sure what's up with that, but hopefully we can make it work. And then she's got a pretty strong shadow from her hand onto her cheek. And it looks like she's got some bounce light. It might just be a light from her sweater, like a white light. Right now we're just going to leave a little edge. But again, I want to soften this up. Being summoned. Let's take that all the way up to her nose. Okay, and then we'll just finish with this hand and then we'll take a break. It's going to look real purple because I put it over the blue, but again, you're going to see when with the layers, you can change the hue, the way the color reads pretty easily. I can soften that if I want. It doesn't always bother me. I'll soften it. Remember, when you're softening it, you have a damp brush, but you don't want it to be a wet brush. A wet brush is going to just push it and make blooms. I wanted this to be pretty dark here, so I'm just going to leave that. And I think kind of happy with it. Let's get a little bit of this. Just doing some little shapes to suggest the knit, and I'm trying to just keep it in the shadow area where I see on the photo. Shadow from her arm. I'll get some of that on there, and then if I just kind of get it wet, tickle it, I'll soften it, and just suggest it in the shadow. Let's go right on up here and do a little bit of that. Not thinking about it too much, just getting some little marks in there to suggest. We'll get a gray. We'll put some color on it next time. Let's do this. Get this a little darker. Right now I'm thinking more about value than much of anything. So these look like they had more value underneath. Just tickling things. Okay, when I looked, I stopped and scanned this and looked at it. I never complete a painting in one sitting. So I usually take several days. These small ones might take 2 or 3. So I like to stop and think. I like to just to look at it and just let it rest. So what I did notice, because one of the things I do is make my photos go. I remove the colors so they go back to black and white. And one of the things I noticed was, I'm trying to establish some values here. So I've got more in here because there's some blues in it, but by her eye there, she really needs a little more. This is kind of a big brush, so let me see if I can control it. She definitely needs a little bit darker near her eye. I'm going to take my second brush that's damp and just soften it out a bit. Maybe pull it down. Okay. I can see that a value increased there, and so I'm going to also do it around her nose, and it'll look purple, but we'll fix that later. I'm going to pull a little bit of that blue right across. I lost it with the water. Let's go ahead and pull it right across your nostril. And be careful not to lose it altogether like I did the first time. I think that'll be okay. Okay, anywhere else I need a little more value on her cheek. That shadow from her hand. And maybe another little splotch there. Okay, I don't want to do too much because I want to get into my next layer and not have to worry about anything being wet. Okay, so I'm going to want to let that dry a bit, so I'm going to put, I guess you could call it local color on her hair. Her hair in the photo is brown, and so I'm going to mix up Mission Red Brown, and I'm going to add some Hooker's Green to it. So I'm grabbing my Mission Red Brown from a separate location. I'm just going to go right into my hookers with a damp brush and see if I can get enough to make a nice brown mixture. That's a little too green, so I'm going to go back into the Mission Red Brown and add some. And let's see what it looks like. It's a nice brown color. I'm going to go back into the Mission Red Brown in a separate puddle, maybe a little more water. So this, I still had some of that mixture on my brush, and then I just went straight to Mission Red Brown. So now I've got a variety. I've got some of this darker version and some of the more watery version, and I think I'm going to start with the watery version because these are the lighter areas. More light is hitting here. So we'll start there. She does have a few strands of hairs, but I don't think I want to do too much with it, maybe just a little. I'm dipping into the darker version because this back here is quite dark. This is a mixture that has less water and more Hooker's Green. Okay, I'm just going to take this is just a damp brush, and, well, no, it's not. Now it has paint on it. I want to get some of these little hairs. And I think there's one going across her finger. Yeah, I think I like that. And then this, I'm just going to let it end. So see how the blue is now starting to work. Okay, I've still got this mixture, the darker mixture. I'm going to put that next to her face. Pull out a few strands. I'm looking at the posterized version especially right now, and then I can really see. I kind of go back and forth. But what I want to do is maybe get some of these darker strands pulled out and then switch to the smaller one with the lighter mixture, and then pull some of those out. still have some of the dark mixture on this brush. I'm just going to pull it down. It started to dry. Let's just go ahead and darken it while we have the chance. And I think this is fine here, so good. I think maybe I had to do something there that was too perfect. Okay. All right, this again still has some dark. I'm going to go in here a little bit more on the eyebrows. Same thing here. And it's not like it's one long line. It's not a caterpillar. You can see there's areas where it's thicker, thinner, darker, lighter. Let's mix up sort of a gray for her sweater maybe. The three colors we started with were Quin Coral, or Quin Rose, Quin Coral, Quin Gold. So I'll kind of start with that mixture, and I'll add the Peacock Blue that we also started with until I find a mixture with a color that I like. It's looking a little green, so I'm adding more coral. Let's see what that looks like. Still think maybe a little more blue. And let's see what color we have. It's just a nice gray. I'm going to leave parts of it white. I might just it's still a little on the green side, and I am going to switch brushes. I'm going to add a little more of the more blue, more pink. It just didn't quite like it. So I'm going to rinse out that first brush. I'm not going to use it. Going back over to here, let's see about this, and that's kind of far away from me. I think that's prettier, a little bit more pinky. Okay, so let's do that. And plus I'm going to grab this smaller brush. Just going to dab that. Okay. And I'm just going to start suggesting some of this little stitching bumps. And right now I'm only saving the whitest whites. And as I go, I'm just lifting excess water out. Sometimes adding a little just to maybe add a little bloom going on. Okay. Okay, now we're going straight in. You can see where it was wet, it's creeping, which is fine. I am going to dab some of these because, well, I can either do that or just take my thirsty brush and lift up some of that excess. And then I'll tickle a few edges, keep it from being too perfect. I'm going to go right across. Actually, I think I'm going to go right into this whole Not sure if I'm going to have those stripes. We'll see. But for now, I'm just going to go into the grayest areas of her sleeve. Maybe a little more over here. Since I've got this nice gray, I'm going to do a little shadowing on her. Oh, wait, I better add a little bit more in here. There we go. I'm going to put a little bit of this in the shadow area of her eye where it's kind of getting tucked under her hair. Looks like her, the whites of her eyes are pretty white. So I am just going to do that pretty lightly. Maybe make her a little. Okay, and then the other side, definitely this inner corner needs to go darker. Okay, well, I've got this nice little pointy brush. I'm gonna do a few more of these flyaway hairs. And as always, then I have to mess them up. Now, let's get some flesh going here. So I'm going to put one of these puddles of brown off because I need the room. For now, I'm going to leave the gray. I'm going to mix up Scarlet Lake. This is going to be a little on the redder side, and then the last glaze on her face will be more on the yellow side. So I'm taking my Scarlet Lake and I'm going to add Winter Yellow Deep. I'm wondering if that's a little too heavy. I really do light glazes, so I'm adding a little water to it. Looks like I got a little dirty into it. Maybe I still had some brown on my brush, but I think it's okay. So I'm going to start to get some color on her hand. Kind of pull it down. Again, I always have my second brush at the ready just to soften areas so they're not hard edges. And I'm gonna tickle that a little bit. Yeah, okay. This is just gonna get all the way. I may even just take some just to darken it because this is pretty dark back here. Okay. Get the paint off of there and just dip it right in without going into the water. And I will just pull that out. Just get the excess water so it doesn't bloom back. I don't mind that this is red, so red because I'm really looking for value. This color here. have to be careful when I go back in that I don't lift what I just did. So I kind of fixed that. Let's get some color up here. And I see it coming across her eyebrow a little bit darker and then down in here. I never want to go too dark on these little under eye areas. There's no need to make anybody look too old, and she's not. It's just that sometimes if you go dark on these, you can make somebody look older than they are. And this hand is pretty much, not quite, but almost completely needs a glaze. So think about to here. And then we'll just soften it out. While I'm waiting for some of that to dry, I'm going to go back into my indigo. Remember I used that for the hair. I'm going to use it to shadow my sweater. I've already got some of the magenta in there, and I already have a little bit of the indigo in there, but I'm going to go a little bit more. Thinking value, that's the main thing. And if I want to, I can use the gray to pull it out and soften it. I'm too close to that hand, which is still wet, so let's go back over here. I'm just going back and getting, I could get it wet and drop in these, or I can do them dry and then tickle them. I usually do the dry on dry, or wet on dry, rather than wet on wet, but there's place for both. Now I'm just taking my damp brush and just tickling. Softening and moving a little. Just want to suggest the sweater. Damp brush. I'm just going to soften all this in so that when I connect it won't be a hard edge. And now you can see it's wet on wet, so you can see it moving. So I may need to go back, get a little bit drier paint to finish it, or maybe it'll work. We shall see. Of course, I'm much more careful with the, with the larger works, but I'm wanting to show you as much as I can. And I've sped it up a little bit too in some places. Okay, let's get a little bit stronger blue. Maybe I'll mix it with a little Quin Magenta, make it a little more purple. Get some nice darker areas. I'm looking at the darkest areas on her sweater. This is nice, got it on her hand. So we may as well make it a striped sweater. Let's I'm going to dampen this area and sort of just in a squiggly manner. And let's see what happens. I'm sort of using this more purpley mixture, but it's pretty dry, so I'm just wanting to suggest a little bit of this. Okay, I feel like we need a little bit. The shadow needs to go across a little bit more. So I'm doing it really wet. Okay, let's leave that alone. Let's darken her lips. I'm going to go into, I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use a little bit of purple where it's real dark over here. And let's do that. Let's take that to her lower lip. And the upper lip, I'm going to start with purple, but I'm going to switch, I think I'll switch to orange. They're going to look more natural if you vary the color. How about a little Quin Rose? Oops, too much water, I'm losing everything. Back to Quin Rose. I feel like a little bit of her lip is peeking out over there. Okay, so back to Quin Rose. A lot less water into the orange. Go ahead and drop that in here. Let those mingle, and then back to the purple. Okay, when I get to the purple, I'm just going to tickle the edge and let it bleed out. Actually, I probably, it's a good idea to do that from the top, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose it all together, so I'm going to wait. Let's go to these reds, get a little bit more color in here. Maybe even Some of that pink over here. And I'm going to go into those lashes with my mixed black. I think I showed you yesterday or earlier. I'm just going to pull some out. Okay, this is it. It's a phthalo blue, a little bit of Caroline maroon, nice black. Okay. To be careful, there are some wet areas, but I think I could get, I don't want to do every hair, but I might add a couple, I might darken a couple. I really want it to look natural and irregular. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'll dip this into the brown. So there's a little bit of combination in black and brown just to darken this. I'm trying to get the hair, the direction of the hairs right. And I can soften some out. Okay. This one, I want it to look like it's going under this hair. So, but it is really light. I guess a lot of light's hitting there. So I don't want to go too dark, but maybe a little bit in that direction. Okay. And now I'm liking that. So I'm just going to take some of this brown and mix it with that black. Get a really nice dark brown. And I'm going to go back in and establish some more of these dark areas. I don't usually finish an area in one sitting because it's kind of nice to come back and with a different color and get in there. Rather than, like, for example, having it all navy or indigo, I guess. Get some more color in here. I like to soften it just in the hair and really let it just flow, kind of get some blooms in it, and I don't know, I feel like that's a good place to show the wateriness of watercolor. I can go into that orangey red and just let this come into the hand. And sometimes you don't stop when you should, and then I mess it up. I will just get in and out, you know. I do want to put this back. Okay, no, I'll just let it happen. Okay. It's definitely easy to fuss too much. So hopefully I didn't do that too bad. And I'm just going to darken areas of her eye. Not necessarily the whole thing. And before I stop, I'm going to add a little bit of Scarlet Lake to the orange, and that way I can darken a few areas before I come back with the warm, the very yellow leaning flesh tone. Get that right on there. I'm just tickling the edges. I don't want to lose the value. Got that cheek a little. It's a fine line between, how much water, too much and too little. You want it on. You want to be able to move it around and not have it be dry, but you don't want it to, and then you don't want it to be too watery where it just disappears on you. Okay, the first thing I notice is that I think I've got a little bit of this too dark, so I'm going to just take my little stiff, flat brush and soften a few areas. I feel like that shadow should be coming more, a little bit lower, so basically I'm just tickling it with the corner of the brush. And dipping it back in clean water and doing it again. And I've also removed this masking, so I've got these little nubs sticking out, which I think they look okay. Same thing with her eyes. So this is looking a little dark, but I need to get this whole area darker. So I'm going to do that first. Take that Scarlet Lake. And how about some peacock blue? You know, sometimes I do this with, instead of using blue, I might use green. I might use Quin Magenta. But I guess I was looking at that blue on this sweater and just decided on blue. And I've actually kind of created a neutral using peacock blue and Scarlet Lake. And this is super light. I mean, it's real watery. I don't want it to get out of control. So I'm going to add a little more blue. And go a little bit darker right here on her arm or hand. Just, this is too watery. It's not going to do anything. So I will do it again. And sometimes, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be weird. Sometimes I turn my board over. Let's see if you can see it. And let the water and pigment kind of flow back. And it helps it to settle in that spot. Yeah. And I think a little more blue. I'm going to just go ahead and take just a straight peacock. So I really want this to be dark. It's either very dark shadow or I don't know, it's very dark, so I just want to do it. I don't know for sure if it's flesh or hair or what, but I just wanted to get it darker there. Okay, I'm going to go back to this little lifting and just soften this where I got a little bit too dark there. Just grab that bloom, or to keep it from blooming, I'm going to take a little bit of this on the blue side. Added water, diluted it too much. I want it on the blue side, I think, and get a little more shadow in here and here. I like the highlights that were left from the masking fluid, but I think I need to just tickle in a little bit of, this is that black mixture I was telling you about. It's phthalo blue, Pearly maroon. I didn't quite mix it up, so they're kind of separate, but I'm going to get that black, and I want to just pull through another eyelash, cross over that spot. Oh, that looks good. And while I've got the black, let's go ahead and darken a few lashes. I'm just selecting a few. This brush has the best point. I can really get some fine lines. Alright, I'm just going to clean this up. I think I want to... Her hair looks a little bit reddish in the photo. What if I feel like I want to warm it up. I see all kinds of colors in it, but let's just look at the painting. I'm going to lean towards red, I think. So I'm going to go back to that Scarlet Lake. And what if I add, well, let's try it with Quinburn Orange, see what happens. It's just going to brighten it up. It shouldn't be too much, hopefully. Let's find out. If it is, I'll drop some more blue on it. And it's pretty... Let's throw a little bit of ultramarine blue in the mix. I don't like it. I was afraid it was going to be too red, but I kind of like it. I guess we should get a little bit on the eyebrows too. Okay. I'm just going to tickle this and let it bleed out. Okay. Let's take... I'm going to warm up her flesh. She's really close. Still haven't decided about the background, but now that I've warmed up her hair, maybe it would be okay to have a cool background. But I want to do her flesh before I decide. I'm going to go ahead and take Peacock Blue. And I'm just going to go back over the shadow on her sweater to kind of define it a little better. Let's go ahead and darken the lips. Do want to soften this out. Brush needs to be pretty dry so I don't lose the color, and I think I like that. Let's take a little bit more of that purple and go into I just wanted to darken it. Let's take this yellow, this pure winter yellow deep. I want to get a little bit of color on her lower lid. Maybe just to pop in some color. Maybe even a little bit here. And maybe here. Just to add some interest and warmth. Okay, I'm going to make sure this is good and dry. And then I'm going to come back and glaze the whole thing with a flesh tone, decide what to do with the background, and then we'll be done. Okay. I'm going to take my lemon yellow or Aureolin, I'm not sure, never know how to say it. I'm going to take it with my Quin Coral and make a nice warm flesh tone. And I like the color, I just want it a little bit lighter. Let's see what it looks like on my scrap paper. It's very light, very light, very light. So that's what I want. Okay, I'm taking my clean damp brush and I'm just softening these. So, warm background or cool background? Let's just think about that for a minute. How about some yellow right in here? And maybe here. And maybe even here. Not sure where it's coming from, but why not? Go ahead and take some along the side of her hand. Which makes me want to say, go ahead and we'll do it. Go ahead and do the yellow background. Just to get a little color here. Each one to add a pop of color. I think she's about done. So, the last thing I do is have a tissue handy, a paper towel, so that I can get the water out of my flat brush, and then I can come in here and I have to be careful about that. I can come in here, just pull out some hairs. I don't want to do too much. It's super easy to get carried away. But the main things I like to do are like crossover. Like I could take something like that to cross over. Find these little holes between her strands of hair. Now I want to restylish them. I'm going to take some hookers and a little bit of that Russian red brown. And look, I think I need a little bit more dark in here. It's not dark enough. Maybe a little indigo, that'll darken it. Okay, all I want to do now is just pink up her nose just a little bit more.